We're talking this morning with Mr. Phil Spoelstra of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of Grand Valley State University. Okay, Mr. Spoelstra, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? For instance, where were you born and where'd you grow up?
Okay, born out in Wyoming Park. Well, I would have been born in 1923, and raised there. And we lived there through the 10th grade. Then the folks moved into Grand Rapids.
Okay, and what year was that?
Moved into Grand Rapids, I was through 10th grade, I would say maybe around 1939, something like that.
Okay. Now, what did your father do for a living?
He was a cameraman for the printing trade, and there was a publication put out here for these old companies. They've been in business for so many years. But in printing colored material, it was printed in 6 colors. And my dad got into chemistry and developed a process working with a chemist out of Toronto, Canada. And instead of printing in 6 colors, they could print in 4 colors. And prior to that, they used yellow, light red, light blue, dark blue, and a black. And my dad came up with the color separation process of using it with yellow, magenta, cyan, and black. And it revolutionized the printing trade in the United States. And there was an article about him in there. And if you're a printer, you can do the job in 4 colors, 4 times through the press. Your competitors have to do it in 6 colors. And it was an advantage. But he did that. And then I got into that too after I graduated in high school in '41 this spring. And so I started doing that. Well, then the war came.
Okay. So was he able then to have reasonably steady employment then through the 30s? He's inventing this, but was he profiting much from it, or?
No, he just loved to do it, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, there was some chemical outfit in Chicago wanted to hire him as a chemist, but no, he liked what he was doing. So that's what he did all his life.
Okay. Now you started doing that. Now before America got into the war, were you paying much attention to what was going on in the world? I mean, were you aware of the war in Europe and things like that?
Not, I don't know. Probably average, I don't know.
But it's not something that you remember, it's something you spent a lot of time studying and worrying about?
No, no. And in fact, when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, well, we had to get maps out to find out where's Pearl Harbor. We don't know, you know.
Do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, we were off, it was on an evening. We met some people we knew, and their son had heard it on the radio, and he told us then. And we found out then that was that evening.
Now once you heard about that, did you figure, okay, you're going to wind up in the Army, or how did you respond at that point?
Oh, I don't know. Fellows that were older than I that I knew. I have an older brother, like he had his friends, and I knew other fellows that were older that had already gone in. And I thought, well, I guess eventually I'm going to do that too. And so then, let's see, this was '41. And so then that next year of '42, then they had recruiters come in for the Air Force down at the old Armory on Michigan Street on the hill there. And I thought, well, I'll see what I can do with the Air Force then.
Okay.
Air Corps.
Now why was the Air Corps more interesting than the Army or the Navy?
I don't know. I had never flown, but I always say, no, you watch the planes go over, that looked like that would be fun, you know. Well,
so you go down to the Armory then to try to sign up?
And you took all the physicals and mental exams and that type of thing. You took the exams and eventually found out, yep, you passed. So, okay, go on home, we'll let you know. And so then other friends of mine did the same thing. And I had one good friend lived just over the second house from us, Ashley Dyke House. And he did it. He was a year older than I was. And so he did it a couple of months before I did. And he'd been accepted. And then all of a sudden, the group I was with, we got orders to report. And he was not reporting yet. Oh man, he was not happy. He couldn't figure it out. But what it was, we went in with a group that they were going to start doing things different. What they had done at that time, when they would enlist, be accepted, then, okay, they go down and get uniforms to start. Well, the decision had been made, we're going to get preliminary training in before that and do some siphoning off and et cetera. So we had to report down to the Union Depot in our civilian clothes, which all we knew. And we got on a train, we were down Detroit, and then they put us on another train, and we were just going and going and going. We're going south, and I know down into the maybe Kentucky or Tennessee, the train, we went through a tunnel, but they were the old steam locomotives, and the guys had the windows open. All that smoke came in the cars. That was a mess. Some of the guys got kind of dirty. But anyhow, then all of a sudden they saw orange trees. And we had to stop for something. I know a couple of guys got up and quick ran over and picked some oranges, jumped back on the train. We ended up at Miami Beach in civilian clothes. And so then what we did there, got issued uniforms, got all our shots, and I'd been in a high school band so I could march a little bit, but most of them couldn't march, had to learn to march and so on.
So you were getting basic training at that point?
Yeah, and PT and all that kind of stuff. So then from there, they had it set up, we go to college. And the group I was with, we went up to Alliance, Ohio, to Mount Union College.
Okay.
And we would have half a day of college studies, whatever it was up there. And then the other half a day, we'd go over to, I think it was Canton, and do a little flying, and little Piper Cubs and Arantas and Tailorcraft, that type of thing. And didn't solo, anything like that, just go fly.
Okay. Now, what was the purpose of all this? Why were they sending you off to college?
Don't have the slightest idea. Hey, we did it. We got a little bit of flying experience in. But then, all right, so this friend of mine, that he got called up after I did. But he was still in that group that went directly down to get started right in through the cadet program.
Right.
You go it, so then after a while, we'd been there, I don't know, a couple of months. Yeah, there at Mount Union College. Then I was in the first group to get sent down to San Antonio. And we got down there, and we were the first ones there that had uniforms on and could march and do all, man, that was real different for them. And we had all our shots and everything and all. So it was, we went through our classification center. And there, more testing and so on. And then you're qualified to be a pilot, navigator, bombardier.
Right.
And it goes that way. And if you're qualified for a bombardier, then that's, but I qualified for all three, so I had my choice of, yeah, I'll go with pilot training.
Okay.
So then,
And then where'd you go for that?
Yukon, Oklahoma, outside of Oklahoma City, just west of Oklahoma City, kind of like a big suburb, at Cimarron Field. And it had been a civilian field. And we got there and open cockpit, little open cockpit jobs, and that's where we started.
And were they
basically
monoplanes or biplanes?
Little monoplane, yeah. And a little windshield in front of you is all open. And you got into things like an inverted flight. These were planes that were different than what we have nowadays. The carburetor in the engine was a float type carburetor, like in a car. All right, you turn the plane, fly it upside down, then the carburetor doesn't work, so it quits. So then what you have to do, you have to straighten it out and then dive down, and then you get the thing started, and all of a sudden it starts up again. Now, you do crazy things like that. But no night flying, anything like that. Then from there, you're there for, I don't know, for your 2 months. Then you went to Enid, Oklahoma for basic flight training. And then, oh boy, that was nice. Even had a canopy over us, you know, and a single engine.
Remember what kind of plane you had there?
That was a BT-13.
Okay.
And then spent a couple months there. Then we got into night flying and cross country, all that type of thing there. And then you put in whether you wanted to go to multi-engine into bombers or single-engine fighters. So then we kind of all split up. And then I went to multi-engine down at Frederick, Oklahoma.
Now, did you choose that, or was that what was left?
No, I chose it, yeah.
Okay. Why did you go for bombers rather than fighters?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I kind of liked the idea of multi-engine or something, whatever it was, yeah. We went there to Frederick, Oklahoma, And that's what we graduated from, got our wings and commissions there.
So about how long then between these different places in Oklahoma do you think you were in Oklahoma? About how many months total for?
6 months,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah. And did you have much chance to kind of get off base or see any of the people in the community and that kind of thing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could get off base on the weekends. Normally you had the weekend off. You'd have maybe fall out for inspection, pass and review, that type of thing on Saturday morning. And then if you'd been a good little boy, well, we didn't have to walk any tours, have any penalties against you. You could take off, go to town.
Walk any tours? I mean, like have guard duty or?
Okay, you'd get demerits. They go into your barracks and the place is dusty, or your shoes weren't shined. You got a mark.
Yep.
All right, and after you got, I forgot how many demerits, then you had to start walking them off. And they'd have a thing, it would be a big rectangle, and you had to march around there, keep marching, going round and round and round, and do it for an hour. You had 40 or 50 minutes because you had a 10-minute break. So you have to walk off your tours that way. So, yeah, we do that. So
now, in this, over the course of this 6-month period, were you with a particular group of guys who were all going through on the same schedule? Okay.
All the same.
And were people washing out or having problems? Or
Yes.
Okay. About.
Yeah. In fact, back in primary flight school, and it's funny, we were all alphabetically. Everybody that I knew, their last name started with S. And at one time we had 13 Robert Smiths. And there was R-O, R-G, R-E, that way, R. And they came from all over the country. But we had 13 Robert Smiths. And I think when I graduated from twin engine, I think we were down to maybe 5 or 6 Robert Smiths. Because a lot of them went to single engine school. But then I know at primary flight school, by then one of my best buddies, Spinnenweber, and he was from Pennsylvania someplace. He'd gone to Temple University, I know, and he was on the swim team at Temple University, and he'd get up in the air, he'd get air sick. Boy, that was crazy. And barf fall over, and he had to wash out. He left, so.
Okay, but were most of them getting through the training in reasonably good shape? Or were
normally, yeah. You'd have a couple of casualties now and then. You know,
were there training accidents in that period?
Yeah.
Okay. What kinds of things could happen?
Well, all right, we had Reardon, I think his name was. We were flying those single-engine open cockpit jobs, and he was flying his upside down, and then he's going down to buzz some people working in a field, and he lost it, and he came in upside down, and we didn't have any radios in the plane, anything like that. So the farmer picked up the body, put it in the back of his pickup truck, and drove over to the base. So everybody stand out for inspection, take roll call, and that's what it was. So, yeah, you have that type of an accident. Yes, you have them.
Okay. All right. So you get through. So you basically you're going off now to multi-engine school. All right. And where are they doing that?
Then they get assigned into combat aircraft or whatever. Now, some of them in multi-engine, they could be assigned to the Air Transport Command, fly cargo ships, that type of thing. And I got assigned with 2 other fellows that I didn't know. I don't even know where they came from. We had to go out to Lincoln, Nebraska, and that's where we got our assignment. Well, first we had 30 days leave here in Grand Rapids. Got out to there.
Yeah, what was it like going back home after X number of months in the military?
Oh, that was, I don't know, just go back home and eat. Mama's home cooking.
Okay.
No, so it was.
All right. Then what kind of aircraft did you get assigned to?
Well, I got assigned with 2 other fellows. 3 of us were assigned to Pyote Army Air Base maintenance department, engineering. Yeah, I don't know. And we got on the train, and one was Cunningham, the other was Smith. I'd never met either one of them. And so we got down there, and they took us in and started checking us out on B-17s, which was flying off that base, for combat training.
Right.
But if a plane needed a new engine, they had to put in, it takes 4 hours to break in a new engine. A plane had been cracked up. They put it back together. They got to go test fly it.
Right.
And we were all assigned, the three of us were assigned as co-pilots for doing that type of thing. And they had the regular pilots, and they put a plane up in the air. That was our job, see how it would work. Well then, yeah, Smith had gotten married when he was home on leave, so his new little bride lived in town. And Cunningham, he found a little girlfriend over in one of the cities down there, and they were just sitting around doing nothing on weekends. Well, then there'd be a business call over in Biggs Field at El Paso. So, okay, the major grabbed me, I'd be the co-pilot, we go to El Paso. And I'd gone through cadets with one of the guys as flying B-24s over there. So I'd have a weekend in El Paso with them.
Okay.
And then I was there in a funny little office that one day, and the colonel came in, yelled for me, and take his Jeep, go back to my barracks, get a change of clothes, and be back here in 15 minutes. And okay, we did. And I don't know what's up. Something's up. I'm going to fly co-pilot for the colonel.
Okay.
And you know, what we had to do was he had to go up and see General Younts at Colorado Springs. General Younts was commanding officer, 2nd Air Force. And he had to go have a meeting with him for a weekend or a couple of days, I don't know when it was. So I had to go co-pilot for him. So he took the bird off, got up in the air, and he said, "All right, you got it." I said, "Okay." So I held it right there, and a couple minutes later he said, what's your heading? And I said, "Right where you left it, sir." And, well, he called a navigator. So I call a navigator, get a heading to Colorado Springs. And pretty soon the colonel says, "What's the heading?" I said, "I don't have it as yet." So he calls a navigator. The crazy navigator came aboard. He didn't have a map or a chart or anything with him. He thought there'd be something in the plane.
Oh.
So the colonel, he's looking out over the side. "Oh, go this way a little bit."
Well, did you find Colorado Springs?
It's right by Pikes Peak. Pretty soon, well, that was the highest one. There we go. So, I was doing all that kind of stuff. And then it happened that one of the crews had lost their co-pilot. So all of us, that's my job. So I moved into a combat crew then.
Okay.
So,
And about when was that?
Pardon?
About when was that you got moved into a combat crew?
Oh, that would be the summer of '44.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I got acquainted with that crew, and then just before we got sent for combat, well, then our navigator on the crew, Walker, his mother was seriously ill or something. The Red Cross put in a call, and so he went home. But yeah, then we went, our crew, we got on a train. Yeah, we went out to Norfolk, Virginia, and got on one of the old Liberty ships. Don't know where we're going, but we got on that. There was maybe, I think maybe 5 or 6 B-17 crews on that. And infantry company going over, and yeah, a couple of weeks later, yeah, we got there. We were on
Okay. Now, did you sail in convoy?
Yeah,
Okay. And what was the weather like on the trip over?
fine.
Okay.
Wasn't bad at all, no.
And did they have any scares with U-boats or anything like that?
We had a couple of scares, but it was didn't prove to be anything, no. That we had a major from the infantry or something, I don't know, some ground outfit. But then they had like anti-aircraft machine guns aboard these Liberty ships.
Right.
So he took, for backup, they needed some backup gunners on those. So he took some of his infantry guys, they can fire a machine gun. But he had the Air Force guys here who have been trained for leading planes and all that. Oh no, they couldn't do that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So he really didn't know.
Okay. Now, where did they take you?
We went over to Naples, Italy. That's where we pulled in. And we didn't know where we were going. But we went through Gibraltar, and we could recognize that, you know, okay, now we know. That it was nighttime or something, and we went past Sicily because Mount Stromboli had been erupting, and you could see some red there. So we kind of figured, oh yeah, that must be where we are then. And sure enough, we ended up in Naples.
Okay.
And,
now, what did Naples look like when you got there?
wasn't all that bad. You didn't see much damage or anything to it. No.
Was it a really busy port? Was there a lot of traffic going in
Yes,
and out?
we had to wait in order to get docked and all that kind of stuff. You had to wait your turn there. And we had fellows coming out of funny little boats with the oars and rowing. They'd come out there and they were yelling for cigarettes. Cigarettes. Well, in those days, cigarettes were 10, 15 cents a pack in the PX, you know.
Right.
So you'd throw them a pack, and the guy would dump in and get those things. Man, they loved that. That was a funny thing. Where they announced that the ship store was closed. Couldn't buy anymore. Well, then somebody aboard there, some of the guys, they could speak Italian, so they yelled at him, "What are you doing with them?" Well, they run for $1 a pack, and we were buying them for 10 cents.
Right.
Well, they closed the store, couldn't get any more. Yeah.
Okay. Now, then once you landed, did they then ship you out someplace else right away?
Yeah, we went just north of there, a few miles to Caserta, I believe it was. And we stayed there for, I don't know, several weeks before we got assigned. Before we went down to Air Force headquarters at Bari, Italy, over in the Adriatic side, way south. And then while we were there at Caserta, well, the USO was coming in. They're going to have a boxing exhibition, and Joe Louis was going to be there. Oh, well, on our group there's a captain, a chaplain, big guy, and young guy, maybe 30. And he was a chaplain, Catholic chaplain, the captain. So he was telling all of us pilots that one night. Yeah, and he said they found out that when I went to Notre Dame, I was on the boxing team, and I got to go box an exhibition with Joe Louis, and he's going to kill me. And going on, all one big lie. He got up and he, as a referee or something, made the announcements and that. And Joe Louis is referee, and he didn't fight either. So, but yeah. So then we went down to Bari. And then from Bari, Italy, we got assigned up there near Foggia to the 5th Wing, the 15th Air Force is around Foggia, Italy, inside the spur.
And about when did you arrive there?
Oh, I'd say maybe September,
Okay.
something like that. I could probably, I don't know, I must have records on it someplace. I could probably look it up. No, I wouldn't be able to look it up because I could tell you when the first mission was, something like that. I don't know when it was. I'd be able to look that up. But then you got checked out on the planes there. And where we were flying, we were in 97th Bomb Group. The 2nd Bomb Group, another group of the 4 squadrons of 17, flew off the same strip we did. But this had been all farmland. And they just bulldozed dirt, made it flat, and that's a runway. So we were flying these 4-engine birds off from a dirt runway. And there's no lights, anything like that. So you're flying off from that, and then, I don't know, after a while, an engineering department came through and put in steel mats. Right. So we could fly off, that was better. Cut the dirt.
Did you have problems with rain or anything before the steel mats got there?
Yeah, it'd be muddy sometimes. Yeah, that would be a mess, yeah.
And could you take off or land if the field was muddy?
No, you have to take off almost in formation. You got to keep on going because you're worried about your gas supply. If you get a map of Europe and take a look where we were, inside the spur of southern Italy, and then go straight north to where our targets were, and then take a look at on that same map, look from the 8th Air Force flying out of England to those same targets. Right. But we have twice as far to go. All right, and then coming back, you might have wounded aboard. Right. You can be short on gas, you can be shot up. We had to come back across the Adriatic Sea. Well, okay, the Adriatic Sea. Sometime take the globe out and take a look at Lake Michigan. And then take a look at the Adriatic Sea, and that way you start getting a comparison of the amount of water you're going over. Right. And then you're coming back over that, and yeah, and all right, on the 17s, you start the 4 engines up, taxi out, take off, circle the field once. That's 150 gallons of gas.
Right.
Well, yeah, pretty soon you need it. So you can't have everybody, you have 28 planes in your group, have to be in formation before you go. Well, you're going round and round trying to get everybody in. Those first ones, they've been up there for a while, burning up a bunch of gas. But it compensates for it because those that come later are in the tail end of the formation. And in the tail end of the formation, you burn more gas than the lead ships because you're jockeying all the time, your throttles, jockeying to keep in position. Whoop, I got to slow down. And then, whoop, I got to catch up.
And if you're up in front, you're not reacting to anybody else.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Can you describe your first mission for us?
Pardon?
Can you describe your first mission?
Well, all right, new combat crew. The first 3 missions, you were all split up. And the pilots are flying co-pilot and so on.
Right.
And anyhow, I forgot the guy's name I was flying with, Clayman or something like that. And we're getting up over the target area, and all of a sudden I could see a group over there going over the target and all that anti-aircraft fire. I thought, oh boy, I'm glad that's not us, you know. And I tapped Marty on the shoulder and I said, you know, oh, and his eyes get real big because then we turned to go through it all. I thought, no, that's not it. Yeah, it's.
And do you remember what the target was then?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Well, what kinds of targets did you have? This is sort of the later stages of the war now. Where were they sending you?
Oh, Vienna, Munich, Linz.
So kind of Austria, southern Germany primarily then?
Yugoslavia, northern Italy, Czechoslovakia.
Did they send you ever as far as Berlin, or did you not have that run?
We did that towards the end of the war. It was, I know, it was March 24 of 45. And I had enough seniority in the squadron. Like at this time of the day, I could go into operations before noon and say whether I wanted to fly tomorrow or not. You don't know what the mission's going to be. And I had taken a couple days that I said, nope, don't put me up. And so they didn't. And they'd been hitting, oh boy, I forgot the name of it now. It was south, about 65 miles south of Berlin. And some of the guys in the tail end of the formation didn't have enough gas to get back. Well, they had that for a couple of days, and I thought, no, the object for me was I would like to live through the war.
Right.
See? So I thought, okay, now we want what we call a milk run, a little easy place. We'll go bomb a little railroad bridge in northern Italy.
Right.
This is what I hope for, see. So I went in, I said, yep, put me up for tomorrow. So then about 4 or 5 in the afternoon, they post a mission, and I get there, and yeah, I got the number 2 spot of our squadron, which is good, and I had the camera ship. And, but now for the group leader, we've got a bird colonel who's in charge of our group. Each one of the 4 squadrons has a lieutenant colonel. At headquarters, the bird colonel's got a couple lieutenant colonels working for him. Now we got some majors down in there for them. So who's leading our group? A captain.
So that does not look like a milk run at that point?
Well, we got the briefing the next morning. General Lawrence was there, all kinds of reporters were there, and the colonel gets up and said, well, gentlemen, this is the mission you've been waiting for. Today you're going to hit Berlin, the longest round-trip mission ever pulled over Europe. And he pulls the thing, and some of the guys yelled, we're not going. And those reporters turn around. Guys, pilots say, we're not going. They all went, but they didn't get back. You know, I had a fellow flying co-pilot for me. It was a new crew. He was a pilot. This was his first mission. And we got up, and we were taking off. There'd be another 17 still on the runway when you're going behind them, because we had to get up in the air and get going.
Right.
And no messing around. And then we got up there, and going up over the target, why, Me-262, twin-engine German fighters.
Yeah.
They came in at us, made a pass at us, and Van Townsend, a flight engineer, all of a sudden he sings some bad words. And I said, "What's the matter, Van? You hit?" No, he said the top turret would not track fast enough to even get a shot in with those things. Well, we lost an engine up there over the target. I think it was anti-aircraft fire. I don't think the fighters got us. And so then we, coming back home, because I had the camera ship, the S2 intelligence wants us to get that one right away so they can get that film developed by the time the people come in for debriefing.
Right.
So as soon as you get to friendly territory, I can leave and go by myself. And so I was on 3 engines, but that's all right. You can fly those birds on 3. So, okay, so then we start coming back and get out there over the Adriatic, and this fellow flying co-pilot for me, then my flight engineer Van, why they're over way on the far side, there's controls, but there's the gauges for your gas tanks. But there's also controls so that you can transfer gas from one tank to another.
Right.
Well, they're transferring the fuel back and forth, and we get to the point we're also still on the Adriatic, and all tanks show empty, and they didn't know how to transfer anymore. And we're getting close to the base, and we ran out of gas in one, so now we're on 2 engines. And on 2 engines, we could not maintain altitude. We're coming down then.
Right.
Yeah, I called into the control tower, told them clear that runway because we can't circle around or anything. We got to come in and land it. So I told them coming in on 2, want to straight in. So we did. We got in. We were the first ones down. But it was, yeah, no, that was bad. In fact, we got on the ground, and Van, my flight engineer, he went over to that lieutenant. He whacks the lieutenant on the back and says, "Just think, Lieutenant, you've only got 34 more to go." No, that was, no, that was bad. That was too long.
Okay. What kind of losses was your group taking at this stage? I mean, were you losing a lot of planes when you were going, or not so many, or?
No, when we were there, not too many. Overall, I got a little booklet on it, and it tells you how many planes we lost up until the time that little booklet was printed. But it was printed before leaving the Berlin mission and that. But in there it tells how many enemy planes our group shot down on that. Yeah, we have 28 planes and go up in the group. But there were occasions when you would have what they call a maximum effort. And then you'd have 1 more plane in each squadron. Flying number 8 man, you could have 32. But no, we had, then towards the end of the war, Italy sits kind of on an angle.
Yep.
And so we were going this way, and the Allied troops, the American infantry up in here, never saw us. And so we decided we'd go up and show them. And so behind the lines, our guys are here, the bad guys are there, and they put big white arrows on the ground, a couple hundred yards behind us. And so we just go, and they didn't have regular anti-aircraft fire. They had little machine guns. Well, that's nothing to shoot at us, you know. So we didn't even go on oxygen. We came in about 12,000 feet. They could see us, and instead of regular bombs, your bomb bays, there's the hooks where you hook your bombs, electrically operated. There's a bomb for each one. Well, you're carrying a load of 500-pound bombs. There's as big as what you are, you know, 500-pound bomb. But, so what they did, they took 50-pound anti-personnel bombs, and they banded about 3 or 4 together and put that on each hook. So that way, instead of getting a dozen, well, yeah, we got a bunch more. So we were dropping 30, 40 of those 100-pound, like hand grenades is what they were. Well, every plane going over was dropping that whole bunch like that. You send up 28 planes, and they're all dropping all those things. Then we found out the next day from the infantry up that they couldn't believe it. And they saw us going over, and after we got all through, why the guy, they look out there, nothing happens. And they look and nothing happened. Nobody was shooting at them, it was all done.
So at that stage, then, because normally the Germans were pretty good about attaching anti-aircraft guns and that kind of thing to the ground units and so forth.
There was a standing rule, a gentleman's we will be nice if you will be nice. All right, if you got a plane, you are all shot up, or you had some very seriously wounded aboard, and you know you can't, they're not going to last for 4 hours.
Right.
You got to get them someplace. If you leave formation and lower your wheels, that's a sign, I give up. And then a German plane would come in and fly on your wing and escort you down, or you place to park it, get you in that way. But then we had it. I don't know what time of the war. Axis Sally called us one night and said there's one B-24 outfit, described what the tail insignia was so they knew who it was. We're going to get you. We're waiting for you tomorrow. And what it was, one of theirs had, out of that group, had left formation, lowered the wheels to quit. And a German fighter came up and one of the waist gunners shot him. Well, after you quit, you can't take a gun and start shooting.
Yeah.
And so they did. And I guess they really caught at that group, that next mission, because all the German fighters wouldn't try anybody else, just waited and waited until this one group came, then everybody got on them.
But I was kind of going back to what you said about the ground attack mission. You're saying you weren't really being fired on very much. Like the Germans down on the ground didn't seem to have a lot of anti-aircraft weapons. And
not in the infantry.
Yeah.
See, at the cities, yes. At Vienna, Vienna was sort of different in that they had like 600 and some odd heavy anti-aircraft guns. And but at that time too, they said, hey, if you are down by Vienna, there was a certain, like a trolley line, if you had car number so-and-so got on that, they would take you and help you escape. And they had that much figured out. But it was, yeah, that was, Vienna was different. That was tough.
Okay. Now, did you see a lot of German fighters? Were there?
Yeah, they come in and you'd have that, and then they had a thing too that you didn't like, an American P-38 all by himself and all over here. And you're flying along in your group, and there's that one P-38, and it's one that had been shot down, pilot captured, killed, whatever. They put it back together, and now the Germans are flying it.
Oh.
It'd be all by itself. That's why you're all by itself. All right, you got your group going here. All right, he's going right like this. He's telling the anti-aircraft people your exact altitude, what your heading is, where are you going, your heading number 310, and what your airspeed is. And all those guys down below, now we know.
Okay. Well, where were your fighters?
That's what we'd call. But sometimes you're out of range. They can't go that far. They couldn't go as far as we could.
Because at a certain stage in the war, they're bringing in the Mustangs, and in principle, anyway, the Mustangs could go where you went.
Yes. But not quite. Yeah. And then too, you get over the target, they're not going to go through anti-aircraft fire.
Right.
So they wait for you then.
Now, do you know if your group ever got escorted by any of the Tuskegee Airmen units?
Yes. Oh yeah, sure.
And did you know much about them at the time?
Yeah, I forgot the colonel's name. We'd see him in Foggia on occasion, and it's a funny thing. He was the only guy that got saluted. Yeah.
What kind of reputation did they have as a group? Were they considered to be any better or any worse than the white pilots? Or?
I don't know. I don't know. I know when we were coming back that one time by ourselves, then there was one alongside of us. He came in on, you have a radio push buttons here, and one was for just in your, the group itself, and one for fighter escort, one's RC rescue, and that type of thing. And he called us and said, he says, okay, boss, he says, I got you. And he flew with us for maybe 5 minutes. And but we were back in friendly territory, then we really didn't need them. So. But then, when was it? Maybe January, February, middle of the winter. And the majority of the targets were all socked in. We couldn't get up there. So we had to do something, and I don't know who made a decision was passed down. And so you're not flying today, and maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon they come up and say, hey, you're going to fly tonight, a night mission.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Now you're up all day. Well, you can get into mess hall and eat, and then you got to go to briefing,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock. But we're flying off from a runway with no lights. And so they park a Jeep down on the end and turn the headlights on, and that's the way you take off.
Okay.
Now you take off, life is tough. Come back when it's daylight. You cannot come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do, take off, and then I know we went up, and then Jones, he came up about 10 minutes behind us at one time. And we'd head up to Munich.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start shooting at us, we would swing to the west and go around to the north, and wouldn't do anything. Just
Mm-hmm.
wake them all up and have the air raid sirens going, say, wake everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had 2 out of our squadron doing it. How many other squadrons were doing it, I don't know where they were going. But then we went from there, we go to Linz, Austria, then we go over to Vienna, and coming back, it's going to be getting light pretty soon, so then they'd have a target picked out for us, maybe a railroad bridge or something, a railroad yards in some little city, and we drop our load there, then head for home. But just go up, well, then you get, then just before you go on oxygen, Doc Remley, Dr. Luke K. Remley from York, Pennsylvania. He was a flight surgeon. He was the best flight surgeon in the world. And we all had a little pill. And so before we go on oxygen, everybody take that little pill, swallow some water, that's it. So now you get back, and it's daylight, it's maybe 6:30 so the next morning. Now you've been up for 24 hours and you're wide awake.
Because Doc's little pill was keeping you awake?
Yes. And so you come back, you go through debriefing, you go back and have breakfast, and you're still wide awake. And so then you go into his little emergency place there, and one of the medics give you a pill, and they'd want you to take it, swallow it. And you now have 20 minutes to get it to bed. And you'd be out for 8 hours.
All right. So this night mission you were doing, were you actually just flying around and buzzing places? I mean,
yeah, just to keep them awake.
Okay.
Sure, get the air raid sirens going, anti-aircraft guns firing. You just harass them, that's all.
and I guess then you weren't really doing it in sort of the tight bomb formation stuff like that.
No,
so
no, single ship all by yourself.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily all that dangerous a thing to do.
No, except that we were up there then, Chief, our tail gunner, is a full-blooded Indian from a reservation out in New Mexico. And in fact, he just died last month sometime. We got a call from him. But anyhow, he's in the tail. All of a sudden, he said, Jones is right behind us. He's flashing his lights at us. No, it was tracer bullets coming from a German night fighter at us. And he saw that thing going. He thought Jones was back there. But no, tracers, so no, the German night fighters come after us. But.
Now, had you had much night training? You mentioned a little bit back in the States, but mostly the Americans didn't fly night missions.
No, the British did that. See, we had the British flying off from our same strip there, our same dirt strip. And they flew twin-engine Blenheims, but they were night missions, yes.
Yeah, but a Blenheim doesn't have that long a range.
No, they're twin-engine stuff, no.
Okay. Now you mentioned talking about different targets and so forth, like flying over Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia. What were you attacking when you were heading off that way?
Our main thing, the heavy bombers were strategic. So we were bombing marshalling yards, oil depots. When we hit Berlin, we were at the Daimler-Benz Tank Works. That was our target, that one building up there. Bunch of buildings. So.
And if you were attacking down in Yugoslavia, were you trying to get rail lines or?
Right.
Yeah. Did you have any effective way of assessing the kind of damage you did? And how could you tell what effect
they would
you had?
send up, just north of where we were, had fighter strips up there. And they would go on photo recon missions. And what it was, I got back from a mission, well, going way back from when we were kids out there in Wyoming Park. My older brother, his best buddy, lived across the street from us. And his older brother, Si, had gone into the Air Force. And I knew that. And his younger brother had gone when I had gone in, too. So, but then Si had been in B-25 bombers. But instead of bombing, they took the, instead of the bombardier in the nose, they put in the 75 millimeter cannon. And he did a tour over in North Africa shooting up German tanks, you know, just banging away that way. And then he'd gone back to the States. He had his tour, but I found that out from his brother because I didn't know him. And I got back from a mission one day, went into the officers' club for mess. And there he was, sitting at our table in there. And he captain. And man, so we talked. Well, he'd had a desk job back in the States and he didn't like it. So he said he'd rather go back to combat. So he, twin engine bomber. They put him in P-38s. And he was in photo recon. But he'd go up and he didn't like it because they took the guns off from his plane. He wouldn't have guns because he was the one that had to take the pictures and all that kind of stuff. So you get back and let's wait, and he's not going to be tempted to fight.
Right.
So anyhow, so we talked. He found out where I was. Well, then it was maybe a week or so later. All of a sudden, here comes a flight of P-38s. Yeah, right across the top of our outfit. Oh, our bird colonel, he was not a happy person. I knew who it was, and the guys from my tent, I'd introduced them, you know, they knew who it was. Nobody knows who it was. Those dumb P-38s buzzing us. And I'd been up to his place and met some of the other pilots from his place. He was up near San Severo, maybe 20, 30 miles north of Foggia. And where they lived, there was one, like a pine tree there, and everything else was just all flat, level and that. Well, we had a plane, we had to put a new engine on it, so you have 4 engines to break it in. We go out over the Adriatic and fly around, and every 15 minutes you give it another 100 RPM and so on. It takes 4 hours to break it in. So, okay, so you're going to get your turn now. So we came in with a 4-engine job, and we knew right where to go because of that palm tree, or that pine tree there. And I went down and buzzed that place. Then about a week or so later, I went up to see him. Oh, he said, that was terrible. And he said, the tent next to his blew down.
Well, at least with a 4-engine plane, they'd have a pretty good idea it wasn't German.
Yeah, they knew that, yeah.
Okay. Now, what was the area around Foggia like? I mean, did you get off the base and see much of the area there, or see much of the civilian population?
Sure. Yeah, Foggia was the main town there. And there were people there that really didn't like the guys from the 97th Bomb Group because earlier in the war, one of our planes that got shot down there, so they knew who they were. But they had been bombing that place, and their marshalling yards was right next to like some factories and that. And street bombs hit other places. You can't get them all right on target. So, but no, it was good there. Buildings old. I know right where we used to, like a hitching a ride back to our base there. There was a church on that corner, and on that stone, it was 1400 something. It was before Columbus discovered America.
Sure.
You know, and that church had been there ever since, and it was old. And but then out to the coast, out the Adriatic, there's 2 little cities out there, Sapano and Manfredonia, and they were just nice little bitty burgs, fishing and that type of thing. And that one they had getting salt from the water. And they had these big cement areas, and they would let the seawater come in, and then it evaporate. Then they let the water come in, evaporate, water come in, evaporate. And after a while, there would be salt collected there, and they'd go out and scrape all the salt out, and that's salt for sale then. But it was all real different, interesting.
Okay. Did you see much of the civilian population there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
you can see, and our squadron, I imagine the others did it too, hired a lot of them. And what it was, out of our monthly check from the officers. There was, I don't know, a few dollars deducted, whatever it was. And that way we hired civilians there so that none of our people had to pull KP, anything like that. And we had people doing that. And we'd have a truck. They'd send one of the trucks into town. They'd pick them up, bring them out to base. Then after the mess hall at night, well, then they send them back again.
Okay. And what sort of people did they bring in? Were they old or young, male, female?
Yeah, mostly males, young males.
Okay, so military age men?
Probably, yeah, could have been, yeah. And then a couple hundred yards east of us, the farmhouse over there, yeah, they did our laundry. And because, yeah, we lived in tents, we didn't have any running water or anything. They had, we finally got a little building put up, and had some shower heads in it, and a big water tank. And then on Saturdays, they'd get a fire going that way, and you can go take a shower. So Saturday was the day to take a shower. But then you have a bit of bad luck and you got a mission that day, then you don't get a shower.
For another week.
But it was, oh, and then over at the, that farmhouse there, where they do our laundry for us, and they put me down as Phillip Pilati for Philip the pilot. That's who I was out there. But your OD, your wool stuff, you can't wash that. So we provided them with a little aviation fuel, and they could do that.
So
they could clean it like dry cleaning.
Dry cleaning.
But the thing is, when you brought it back, don't put it on and don't smoke for a day or so. Because
you can light up.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there a lot of men off the base who were going in finding girlfriends or things like that, or going
I
off?
would imagine so. Yeah, they're in town. Well, you're not going to stay on the base. You got the day off. No, and you, yeah, you never know what you're going to find. I had it that one time. I was coming back from town or something. And I looked at this guy, and yeah, I'd gone to high school with him, and we. I graduated from Central High. We'd both been in the band. He'd been the drum major, Earl Bergering. And he was in radar repair at the 2nd Bomb Group. We're the same place there. Yeah, you find him. We had it, I found another one. You get R&R after so many missions. And we were due for it, and you had your choice, either go to Rome or the Isle of Capri, and you're going to get both eventually. So we took the Isle of Capri, and we went out there the day after Christmas. And it's funny because where we were, the Isle of Capri is straight west of us, over to Naples, and almost straight west of us. But the difference in the weather is just tremendous because of the Apennine Mountains come down through Italy. On the west side, your weather patterns come in from North Africa across the Mediterranean, and it's warmer. Right. And on our side, it comes down from Europe, from the Alps. It comes down there. So there's a big difference. We'd have snow on the ground, and we're living in these little dirt floor tents with snow. And so anyhow, we went over there. And yeah, there's even orange trees and palm trees out there. You know, oh boy, that was great. So anyhow, we're waiting to catch the boat to go out to the island, out the Isle. And I looked there, and there's another guy from Central High School, been in the band, Weber. And so I talked with him before. He was in the infantry out there doing something, I don't know what. So now and then you meet somebody. Yeah.
Well, so I know that in some of these bases and so forth, they had discipline issues with some of the soldiers and people like that, taking up with local girls and things like that, or getting involved in black market activities and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that, I didn't hear of any. I know one time, one waist gunner was in town. Well, all right, your flight crews, you all had the .45 automatic and a shoulder holster. And yeah, you go to town, that goes with you, you know. And he was in town, it was time for him to come back to base and that, and all of a sudden, 3 of the natives there decided they were going to jump him, take his money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't work that way because he pulled out that cannon and he rolled them. And he had a nice gold pocket watch that they had gotten from somebody else. He got that. He showed it to us. Yeah, that was McFeet.
Now, over the course of the time there where you were based in Italy, in what ways did sort of the missions or the atmosphere change? Was it different, say, in April of '45 than it had been late in '44?
Yeah, I don't know. See, I wasn't there. You're not there that long.
Okay. How long were you there?
Well, 7 or 8 months, maybe.
Okay. So when did you leave Italy?
After the war was over.
Okay. I guess I was asking sort of between the time when you got there and the time when the war ended, what was changing? Or
yeah, the missions became easier.
What made them easier?
Have less opposition.
Fewer aircraft coming up?
Yeah, fewer German fighters, because they could not replace them as fast as what we could replace ours. There's always so much that goes on that you do not know. And in fact, it was just a few years ago in the magazine World War II, which I get. And in there's an article about the second Pearl Harbor. What is that? Well, yeah, no one knew. They kept it absolutely quiet what had happened. Well, 15th Air Force headquarters was down at Bari, Italy. And so all the troop and supplies, everything came in through that port. And the Germans knew that, and all day they sent a little recon plane up there, and after a while the anti-aircraft fire didn't even shoot at that one little plane. Forget it, get out of here. Well, they collected all the planes they could throughout Yugoslavia and that area, and they finally decided they're going to pull a mission down there. Of course, we, the Americans, were not aware that they didn't tell us we're going to do that tomorrow. And so sure enough, they came down with a couple hundred planes and bombed everything there. Well, it seems as if they couldn't understand it, the explosions, the Americans and the natives there, everything was bad. But what had happened was that word had come down that towards the end of the war, in desperation, what if the Germans start using poison gas? What are we going to do? And so one Liberty ship had a load of bombs that were gas.
Oh.
There were 2 people that knew it. The ship's skipper, and there was a lieutenant from the Air Force, Ordnance. He knew it. He knew what these bombs were different. Well, the skipper got into port. He said, "Hey, I got to unload first because of." No, you can't do that. He had to take his turn. So what it was, that ship got hit.
Yes.
Now they had all that poison gas in the air. And the medics couldn't figure out what's going on. We got all these people dying and all of that. And that was a second Pearl Harbor. It was never reported. But the whole article, it tells the guys' names and everything in there. Very interesting. It's never come out.
Yeah, and that's not the kind of thing that you hear about. I mean, poison gas is conspicuous by its absence in the war, by and large.
No, and we had it. See, we got caught with it.
Yep.
But it was, no, that was out of Bari. So.
Okay. What is it sort of physically like to be up in one of these planes on a mission up at high altitude and so forth? I mean, what did you have to do to compensate for being all the way up there, for the cold and the rest of it?
Towards the end of the war, we got heated suits, and we could plug that in, and that was great. And but you get back from your mission, you had to take it off and turn it in, so the next guys could wear it.
Right.
But it was no, because otherwise it is cold.
So when you were first flying, you had to fly without the heated suits?
Yeah.
So what did you do instead?
Put a lot of clothes on. You'd have winter underwear, and you put your ODs on, and then your leather outfit is all fur-lined in that. And your oxygen mask, all right, when you breathe in, this little valve opens up, and you exhale, it closes. But then when this one closes, then it blows out. You have a couple of side ports. Well, there's moisture in your air. You go out in the wintertime. All right, so then you get ice cubes in these little things. So you got to take your mask off, pop the ice cubes out, and put it back on.
Now, as a pilot, you had to be able to use your hands. So how do you keep your fingers from freezing off?
Well, yeah. You just do it. You have, you'd have like 2 pair of gloves. You have the one pair which is more of a knitted material, you know, thinner stuff. And then you have these kind of lined, fleece-lined or fur-lined other gloves you put on over that, yeah.
And could you operate the controls with the gloves on?
Yeah. Well, you got just, after you get going, you just have the wheel and you got your throttles down here and that's about it. So,
Okay. Now, are there other sort of specific incidents that kind of stick in your mind from that time that you spent in Italy there?
Oh. Yeah, probably. Funny things, crazy things, yeah. I went with another one time, went over to Manfredonia, and they had a restaurant on the 2nd floor, but it was off limits. But man, oh man, we wanted some real food. We didn't want any more of this spam, you know, we had enough of that. And so we went into that off limits restaurant. We got up there and the colonel was up there.
Oh.
He looked at us and we looked at him, okay, nobody say anything.
So why would a restaurant be off limits?
I don't know. I don't know. That one was. A lot of them were open, yes. Majority of them were. But what it was with that one, I don't know.
Okay. Now, do you remember hearing about the war ending? At least the war in Europe ending?
Oh, sure. And guys went out to the plains and took the waste guns and fired those things, just held it right down until there's no more ammo, because it had all the tracer bullets in it. And I understand that some of those things, they melted, the guns melted, instead of firing in bursts, yeah.
Now, once the war ended, how much longer did you spend in Italy?
Oh my, maybe a month or so.
And what were you doing during that time?
Nothing. We got transferred from our base up north of Foggia. I forgot the name of that little place up there. There's another little tent city up there. And yeah, we were all up there waiting to find out what's going to happen, you know. We're going back home, we know that.
Right.
How and that we don't know.
Was there an expectation that you'd be then sent over to Japan or trained to fly B-29s? Or?
No, because it came through that if you had so many points, you could get out.
Right.
And I had enough points and awards and decorations, let alone type of service and all that. So I figured I'm not going to be doing much. But while we were there were some that, well, your flight crews, if you fly, it's either 4 or 6 hours in a month, then you get your extra 50% flight pay. And they had a couple of the pilots where they were waiting to go home. Oh, they wanted to get that flight pay, you know, and they did. There's one took it out, and there'd been guys in town. They hitched a ride back, and there was a big flatbed trailer, and it going slow, and the guys were on the back of it coming back to the base, and there was one guy even sitting up on the cab, on the roof of the cab. But the crazy pilot came down. He's going to buzz everything, and he hit one of the, like a telephone pole, a light pole on that, and the wire went there and went right around that guy's neck on the top of the cab and took him down and killed him.
Wow.
And yeah, they know who was in that plane. I don't know if whatever happened to him, but.
Now, in your record, you have a Distinguished Flying Cross.
Yeah.
What did you get that for?
Berlin. Yeah.
Was that the mission where you were losing the engines?
Yeah, we came back on two, and we got back, and we had some other troubles too, but it was We got all the guys out of their positions and all of that. You get them all into one central area, like where the radio room is, just in back of that area in the waist, so that your weight is all distributed to this one main area. Your plane is built for carrying this bomb load, and that's what the plane is built for. So you want to try to get your weight into that area, then that's what it's built for. You don't want to spread out all over.
So that helps you keep it stable while you're trying to fly it without enough engines and so forth. All right. Now you say sort of the war has ended, and they've moved you up to another tent city, and you're staying up there for a while and so forth.
Well, then we got sent down to Barry, Italy, Air Force headquarters, and then from there we were all split up. I didn't know any of the guys. We met guys, and we're going to give us a plane to fly back, and so then. We had 5 fighter pilots. They would rather ride with us than take a boat. So they were coming back too. And we left Barry, and we were going down to Marrakech, Africa. Got across the Atlas Mountains, called into Marrakech, and they said, we got a sandstorm, go to Casablanca. Went to Casablanca. Yeah, that was non-combat, those people. That was an Air Transport Command thing. And we pulled in there. And we couldn't go at the officers' club to eat because we were not properly dressed. They had waiters with the white linen clothes on and all the brass buttons. We were not properly dressed. They didn't have quarters for us. We had to go to the Italian embassy to find a place to sleep for the night. Well, and then they were bad. They were worse than our enemy. And so we got up the next day, and they decided, well, going south, there was a storm over the South Atlantic. So instead of going down to Dakar, Africa, and then across to Natal, Brazil, and on up to Florida, we could go from where we were out to the Azore Islands, and then on up to Newfoundland, and then in that way. So some major there wants to give us 300 gallons of gas. Well, the tanks hold 2,780, and it takes 150 gallons to take off. And he wants to get halfway across the Atlantic, had to go round and round, and he finally filled us up. We got up. Fran King from Leeds, South Dakota, he took off right behind me. We got up there, we were up about 15 minutes, and he said, Phil, he said, I got a problem. He said, I lost an engine. I got to go back and ask that major for an engine. And,
at that point, you ought to go back to Marrakech, maybe. The sandstorm's
yeah,
done.
I don't know what he did. So.
Okay, so then you make it out to the Azores then?
Yeah, had a good navigator. And we got up, and he said, hey, now that's a little bitty spot. And he said, if it's time to be there and we don't see anything, what are we going to do? You turn left or you turn right? You don't know what to do. He said, so I'm going to aim about 12, 15 miles north. And we can see it then from our altitude. And if we get there, we don't see it, we'll turn to the left, we'll turn south then. But he came right straight in, just kerboom like that. He did too when we went up to Newfoundland, St. John's, Gander Base. Why? He was right straight in, he was good.
Okay, and then where in the States did you fly back to?
Bradley Field, Connecticut.
Okay.
And yeah, that was, we got there and we parked, got the bird down on the ground, and there's no Jeep. They don't tell you where to go, don't tell you anything. And so we just went and parked it. Then pretty soon some captain comes over and says, you can't leave that here. He's told, go get a bulldozer and push it where you want it. We don't care.
So where'd you go from there?
Fort Miles Standish in Massachusetts, infantry base. And they had a bunch of German PWs working there. Then from there we went to Fort Campbell over at Chicago, north of Chicago.
And is that where you actually got your discharge, or?
We got out there. We got not a discharge, but see, the war with Japan was still on.
Right.
And that was some infantry base, I guess, Fort Campbell. And we got there, and we all had just all flight clothes on, you know, and on a train. And but we had a squadron CO, lieutenant colonel, with us. We got off that train, and it was maybe 4 in the afternoon. And some captain was there to meet us, and well, gentlemen, he said, you are going to be so happy. Tomorrow at this time, you're all going to be on your way home with 30 days leave. Good. And Colonel, he looks around and said, Captain, just a minute. He said, you said 2 things wrong. He said, you're going to cut our papers today. It's not time to go home. Well, he said, I can't get it done. He said, you and your staff are going to stay and cut the papers today. And not 30 days leave. He said, we are getting 30 days temporary duty, our hometown. Then we got rental allowance too. Well, Colonel, he did it.
Yep.
He did it for us.
Now then, did you have to report back after that, or were you pretty much done?
No, because then we were back here, and I was at my folks, and I know I was upstairs in the bathroom. My dad called up, the war in Japan was over. Above the kitchen area there was an airing deck upstairs, so I got my 45, and I'd go out on that airing deck. So I fire a couple. Oh, my mother, you can't do that in the house. You can't do that. So, okay. My dad and I went out in the backyard. I let him fire a couple rounds, though. But then all the neighbor kids were over. So, no, got to stop that.
Okay. Now, once that's all over, what did you do after that? Did you go back, did you go into the printing business? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Went back to there, yes.
And then did you do any college or anything like that, or just?
Yep, I went to Aquinas College. They had a career action program, nights and weekends. And went back there, and it was a bachelor's degree business. And that program was a great program in that you had to be a certain age. You couldn't be an 18-year-old and take the program. And what they had was that if you could prove to the head of the department that you were knowledgeable in a certain area, you could get credit for that. Okay, so, well then I know that one time the PT department came out with flight training. Everything you got, see, yeah, I got a lot of credits on that, everything they offered and so on. And then, I know like a course in tax law. Now, they didn't have somebody come in and just read the book and read it, you know, and this is what I'm going to teach. They had a fellow that was in charge of internal revenue here in Grand Rapids over that across the river. He was in charge of that. He was the one that came in and taught the course. Well, you're not going to get any better than that, see. And they were doing that time. They had a course in advertising. They had a fellow that had his own advertising agency here in Grand Rapids. He taught about advertising, yeah. And that's the way they did it. They did some good stuff that way.
And was it largely veterans who were in there doing this? Or?
No, there were, they came from quite a way. I know that a couple of courses I took, they had a couple of gals that were nurses. They were RNs from Muskegon, but they wanted to get their bachelor's degree so they could go further on.
Right.
And there was that type of a thing.
Okay. Now, did you do any more flying after you got out of the Air Corps?
No. No, we parked that bird, and that was enough.
Now, to look back on the whole thing now, how do you think your time in the military wound up affecting you?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. It was different. But if I had done something else, I don't know what I would have done. Yeah.
Do you regard it as a positive experience or something that you kind of helped you grow up a little, or?
Yeah, there are certain things that you learn that you still probably carry on with that type of a thing. I still keep my eye in the air quite a bit. I know that I sometimes I have adverse comments about keep your eyes on the road. It's But we were taught, to keep your head on a swivel. That's the only way you're going to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, no, that was all right. Good time.
All right. Well, thank you very much for talking to me today.
Okay, good.
All right.
So
We can now shut off our mics here.